fact, I still have not the friends that I made in the military.
Okay.
No, I don't see any of them. And in fact, after I got when everything was finished, why I never did see him after that.
Really?
We talked about it, but we never got together.
Yeah. Do you see your friends from high school and stuff now?
I still see one guy from high school. He doesn't have the use of any of his legs. He had I don't know what his problem was. I think he had a stroke, and he can hardly talk, and he has no use of his hands to speak of and that. So I visit with him once in a while, once in a great while.
Okay. Tell me the story about how you got kicked out of school.
Oh. Well.
Did you get that?
Yeah, it's on there. I'll hold on to it for a second.
I was at the...
Yeah.
I used to have a part-time job at a restaurant where I was cook hamburgers like at McDonald's. I was working in the kitchen area, and I would work till like maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and go home and get up at 7 and get ready and come to school, and I just was tired. So at one class I had, I just laid my head down on the desk and I fell asleep. And the teacher came along and grabbed me by my hair and pulled my head up, and she said, "And you're such a pretty sight." And I said, "Well, you're not very pretty yourself." So I was marched down to the office, and I was told the way I could come back to school was to bring my parents with me.
Yeah.
What? Silly job, silly story.
All right, what about the one when you lied about your appendix? Tell me that one.
Why do you always like to hear these kind of
stuff? It reminds me of how ornery you were.
Well, one day when I had a part-time job, like I say, I didn't feel like going to school, so I went up into a bowling alley. And I spent the whole afternoon in the bowling alley. And when I got home, why, evidently the school had called and reported to my folks that I had missed school. So finally they said, "Why didn't you go to school this afternoon?" And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, I was at the bowling alley and I had a pain in my side, and that just hurt so bad that I just laid down, and the next thing I knew it was time to come home. So they said, "Well, come on, we better go to a doctor." So they took me to a doctor. No one had anything the matter with my appendix. Anyhow, the next thing I know, they're wheeling me down the aisle, take me in the operating room, and they removed my appendix. And while they did remove my appendix, I died. My cousin was a nurse in the operating room, and she said, "You actually did die, but of course they brought you around." I'm still dead, though, today. But that was a crazy story.
Now, do you still have grandpas?
Okay, so where were you when you found out about, let's say, VJ Day?
VJ?
Yeah. Well, either one first, and we'll talk about the other one.
Well, I was...
How about the Europe War?
I was still on Okinawa when we found out that the European War was over.
Okay.
And then, of course, I can't remember, was I out in Guam when
I'm not sure either. That's another thing. Tell us the story about on the ship.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, going on board the ship from the time we left Okinawa to go back to Guam, we'd sleep up on the deck. It was nice and breezy. We sleep on the deck. Well, all of a sudden, when I got the ship started rocking like this, and they ordered us all to go below, down to our bunks down below. And all night long, the ship kept just rolling and tossing. We found out we were in a typhoon, and all the lifeboats and everything had broke loose, and they were gone, and
the railings, everything
that was on top was gone.
Oh wow!
So
you were lucky.
Was half seasick,
Well,
but
He
I
said he
thought
was
to
more
mys-
scared on that than he was in the
I thought to myself
going
when I
through
was
the
there,
war.
how can I go through a battle and all this other stuff and then get hurt or dead
Killed,
on
like
a
you.
stupid ship that's just in a storm? But
Could happen.
anyhow, that was a
Exciting.
terrifying experience.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What did you think of Roosevelt? Like,
I liked
as
him.
a,
I thought he was a very good president. And in fact, you know, he was elected 3 times to be president,
Mhm.
and no other man has ever done that. They've never made an exception to the rule. 2 terms and you're out.
Mhm.
People respected the
Yeah.
president in those days, and even whether they were a different denomination or, you know,
Yeah.
they didn't
Party.
back or anti
Uh-huh.
them. Like
What
they
about
did.
Truman? Did you like him?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I thought he was great man.
Truman?
What about you, Nana?
Yeah, like I said, these young people that think it was terrible they dropped the bomb just don't realize they probably wouldn't be here if he hadn't done that.
What is your full name?
My full name is Betty, and then my teacher always tried to tell me my name was Elizabeth, and Betty's a nickname, but it wasn't, it was Betty. But my classes were always full of Bettys.
Mhm.
I don't know where they all went to. And Elaine, my granddaughter, is named after me. Smith. So I had a lot of fun with that name, Betty Smith. When boys would try to pick me up, they'd say, "What's your name?" And I'd say, "Betty Smith." They'd say, "Yeah, I'm John Doe."
Yeah, because it's so
Also
common.
run around the girl named Betty Baker. They wouldn't believe either one of us.
Oh, that's awesome. Where were you when you found out about Pearl Harbor?
Well, let's see.
Do you remember?
That was 41. I hadn't met Grandpa yet.
Oh, you hadn't?
No, that was December the 7th.
Uh-huh.
And we had our first date the following March the 1st
Oh.
of 1942.
Uh-huh.
And he told me I was a nice girl, but he didn't want to go steady.
How old were you when you started dating him?
Well, I guess I was 16.
And was he 17 or?
Yeah,
okay.
that's right. He was 17, I was 16. When we used to sit on the porch swing and say that when we grew up, we were going to have 2 boys and a girl.
Well, you came pretty close to that. You got 3 boys and a
Jim
girl.
had to spoil the plan.
So when you stayed behind, did you know a lot of boys that went over to the war?
Oh yeah, practically everybody went.
Yeah.
It was, if you didn't go, they used to have, here's a saying they had, in 1940, they'd say, "What a man!" In 1941, they'd say, "What a man!" In 1942, they say, "What's a man?" Because there weren't any around.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another
Jerry,
thing your
would you want
grandpa,
to do me a favor?
what do you want, a Pepsi?
No, open that patio door.
You have to get the
See that?
stick.
So you went to work during the war?
Well, yes, I was a junior in high school, and so I continued, graduated in 44, and went straight to Studebakers, which most people don't even know there was a Studebakers in Fort Wayne. And it's a year later they closed, and my boss sent me over to Harvester.
So how old were you in this magazine?
Well, I was 17 when I graduated, so I was 18 when I went to Harvester.
Oh.
When Dale came home, he never did have a furlough. Everybody else had boyfriends in the service, and they'd come home on a furlough, but not Dale. He went as a civilian and came home as a civilian almost 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But he got home on the 9th, and we were married on the 30th. And first thing I had to tell him, I wasn't a very big diamond, but one day I'm typing, I looked down and the stone's gone, just a ring there.
Oh.
So the first, when he called me when he got in Chicago and said he was in the States, I said, "I lost my diamond." He said, "We'll buy another one."
Did you know anyone that was lost during the war?
Yes, we had one real good friend that was killed during the war. And I had 3 uncles that were in the war.
Mm-hmm.
You know, remember that Uncle Dale that he said was so nice? He
Yeah.
and his 2 brothers were in the service.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was from the age of, that's why I hate war.
Mm-hmm.
I hope to heavens there's never another draft. And there is a book called the Studebaker book, and your mother's name is in it, because
Yeah.
my mother maiden name was Studebaker, and now my name's in it, and so is your mother's.
So how are we related to the Studebakers?
He was, I think that her dad, I think, was the 6th generation.